Hey, so this is the Drunkalogs, a podcast about addiction and recovery in which each guest shares their version of how it was, what happened, and how it is now, and then endures a half-hour Q&A at the hands of your host, Nick Morton. My next guest is a comedian from Grand Prairie, Texas, who moved to Los Angeles in the 90s to develop and star in the MTV cult hit Austin Stories, and has since written on many well-known TV shows, including the Emmy Award winners Samantha Who and MOM. She has been sober for a little over 11 years now and shares here the journey in recovery to reconnect with her birth mother and an entire second family. Won't you please welcome Laura House. The whole thing for me of getting sober was really as much about exploring a new chapter in my life as it was about stopping my behavior. And so
interesting.
I see.
It's like a beautiful way to put it.
Thanks. I see this whole sort of series of conversations more about that in a lot of ways than about
Like
beating
what's
your
this
chemical addiction, because that's the least of it.
Yeah, shockingly. Yeah, that's the worst news.
I mean,
the day you figure that out is like,
you're like,
that was the weirdest day when you're like, oh, I thought I just had that one problem. Like, I really just thought I would just be instant blossom blue, like never be sad again. And then it's like, oh, I'm wired weird.
Yeah, and so that's kind of the thing to me. It's it's and then it's just like how it was, what happened, how it is now, because I think that's like it's like a classic 3-act structure, and it tends to result in like amazing stories. So
yeah,
Laura House, how was it?
So that big thing that happened, what was it?
Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in a little town outside of Dallas. Grand Prairie, Texas is where I'm from. And didn't like, even as a kid, I like wanted better. Like I was like a snob kid. And even you can hear my voice is not super Texan-y.
You don't have that Texan twang.
I can go Texan-y. Like, it's not, like, I can do it. It's not,
awesome.
Big deal. But
right.
I was like, I remember just as a kid, I was like, I would just watch TV.
Right.
And was like, I want to be in there. I would anything,
somewhere else.
I would practically, I guess I didn't technically lecture my parents, but just like, there's other places, there's a New York. Have you heard of New York? There's a Paris, and now as an adult and understanding mortgage or what, like to them, my dad had worked in Dallas and they were like, Grand Prairie was this cute up and coming suburb, and they bought a house. They lived there for very normal reasons that you could never explain to a privileged child. Not privileged, but like middle class. We had everything we needed
for work.
My dad, they both were civil servants, I guess. My dad worked for City Hall. My mom was a teacher.
Nice.
And I'm adopted.
Right. Oh, wow.
Yeah. And my brother, we're both adopted, different. We're not related.
Right.
Technically. But so we grew up in this, it was this really normal, it's so funny, like I grew up in the 80s, but it was the 50s. Like my parents both had really traditional values, I'm skipping around a little, but when I was in college, my mom called me one day because she was so proud that I was in college. And I never quite understood why it was such a big deal, because they always were just like, you're going to have to go to college. Called me and she said, you know what I did today? I went to the bank and I put my own first name on our checks. It had only been Mr. and Mrs. Stanley House. And she was like, and then it was Stanley and Carol House. And she was like, yeah. I just told him to change it. I put my name right on, that was her flag in the sand. Was that's like, amazing. Yeah. So literally, that's how I was raised. Like,
disrupting.
And that's when I was,
the system.
That's how I was 20 when she was like, I have a first name too. She's the only one writing checks probably. This whole time, and that, how long it had bothered her, and that she called me Laura will love this because I'm like going to,
Right.
I'm going to University of Austin. I'm going to marches.
Right. The
Sarah
feminist,
Weddington
sure.
is a professor there, and
Right.
I'm at, women's. I had just heard, I'm reading Susan Faludi, and I had just heard, who is she? She wrote The Feminine Mystique. And I had never, I never knew these things. And she stood in front of us and talked about changing the world. Women were sitting in kitchens talking about something more.
I can't. She's so famous.
I can't either.
We talk about her all the time.
So famous. And I'm blanking. Like, I'm the worst feminist in the world right now.
My brain has gotten so bad.
Also, when you can remember, like I could
Betty Friedan,
that was her.
Right.
Like I could draw her, and I couldn't think of her name just now. And I don't even draw very well. So I grew up middle class, stable parents. I never even heard them disagree.
Right.
Like not fighters, same friends, same house, same everything. They did drink. Mm-hmm. And they did have so much more fun when they drank.
Right.
Like there was no question to me that drinking was the greatest thing about being an adult.
Right.
Like just no question. They weren't drunks.
Right.
Maybe. But it was like they didn't change their personalities in a bad way. It was like they're like stern, boring parents Monday through Friday around 4.
Right.
And then it was happy hour, and it was often at our house. My mom was a teacher. All her friends are teachers. They're coming over for margaritas and happy hours, and then like laughing, like screaming, laughing.
Yeah.
And I don't think of them as social, but they were very social. Like we had fish fries and catfish fries, and my dad was a hunter, so he'd like, I guess we were always just frying meat, but like venison, and they're drinking beer in the yard, and ladies in the kitchen with margaritas and whatever. But just as a kid, it was like, wow, right. That seems super fun.
Well, it does. It sounds fun to me.
Yeah, no, it was the only, the rest of the time my dad's just kind of grumpy, and my mom's just like grading papers, and everything's hard, and then it was like, wee.
Party.
So yeah. So I definitely had that in my head. But I also had read, I love when you remember some weird random thing. I'm Pisces, and I had read somewhere we're prone to addiction. Right. And I got in my head, I could be an addict.
Right.
Because that's how I was dramatic as a kid. And so like in 7th grade, I started going to a Baptist church. We were not Baptist. Right. We were Episcopalian and barely like not religious. It was Texas, but they were not religious. Right. And I needed some religion. And I found a Jesus that you talk to all day. And I was like, and it's so funny when you finally learn the word alcoholic and that there's books describing this person, and you're like, like just an extreme personality. Right, sure. I just need more.
Right. Everything is just full on.
Yes. Everything is, kids are just like drinking and going to third base. And I'm like, I am best friends with Jesus. Like was like going door to door, like as 13, knocking on doors. Can I tell you about Jesus? Can you imagine?
Did it freak your parents out?
I would just be like, no, you cannot tell me about Jesus. Like it is 8:00 at night. Like go home, or like
really?
Go kiss a boy. Like, get out of here.
Freaky.
Yeah. And I was definitely kissing boys, but I just was also, I was in Disciples Now. Anyway, and looking back, it was so social. It was the biggest church in town, and they had, they went traveling on, mission trips or whatever. And so a lot of it was just, I didn't have like, it was
structure.
Kind of was you do that or you go drink in the park.
Right,
like it kind of was, I don't know what the other options were.
At your school that you could pal around with? So there was like a clique.
Yeah. And cute boys went there, and there were, so
wholesome Christian boys.
Yeah. I mean, they never are. It's always drunk on Saturday and get it together for church on Sunday. Right. So, but I was really into it. And then I was a foreign exchange student in high school. And so I was like known for like not drinking in high school. And
Where'd you go?
Norway. I lived in Norway for a year as a foreign exchange student. And I learned, not that Christian. I learned, because they weren't, there wasn't the social thing there.
Right.
And so I certainly still thought of myself in that way, but like it was so normal to drink. And
what else are you going to do in Norway?
I mean, and it was very, very fun. Like it was very, there, like at 18, you can drink, and they like, I was kind of a celebrity because I was a foreign exchange student,
sure.
and
you're the only one there.
Yeah, and these, I'm American.
You don't hear about a lot of foreign exchange to Norway.
Really? Well, yeah, I guess not.
People go to France and England, Spain.
I guess it was so like
China, Japan.
I guess
I don't know.
That was too exotic for me.
Yeah.
But my thinking. Well, there was at our school there was an exchange student from Norway, so I think that was a huge connection.
Sure.
He was passing around. I mean, the real story is, I feel like I'm going to take up too much time because this is such a weird detail. But like when I was in 8th grade, these exchange students from London came and talked to our class.
Right.
And I remember, you probably have these moments of like, when it's like a voice talks to you, like a very clear message just lands.
I wish.
Never?
Once.
Okay. So, yeah, no, it doesn't happen all day long.
It wasn't clear. It was just like something happened and it changed my life.
Oh.
But anyway.
I'm so tangential. But I read, Ann Dowd wrote a story the other day of how she was freaked out in her 30s about not making it yet. And she heard a voice that was like, it'll happen in your 50s. You'll be 56. Like my voice was never that specific,
right.
But it was like she just had this knowing, and then she was like, okay, and got on with her life. And I know another actor who said, he was deciding colleges, and a voice said, if you go to this college, you'll be famous. And he did go on to be famous.
What did the voice say to you?
This was my voice was like, you're going to be you're going to be a foreign exchange student. Like
right.
I just saw them.
Right.
And I think my whole drive, and it's related to alcoholism, in that I just wanted out.
Yeah.
Like I just wanted out, more different,
like I relate to that.
Screw this small town.
Definitely.
Like I want to see the world. And it is healthy to want to see the world.
No, I agree. I think that's a healthy impulse.
But I think when you're just like, I got to get out of here.
Right.
And like, you're kind of I had no problems, but
right.
like, my existence was a problem, just not enough for me. This, you don't get me, and I'm adopted and I'm not understood, and, I'm just in the wrong life, or, whatever.
Probably all true on some level.
It may be.
I don't know.
And I do want to, all of this couched in an honor student, a student,
right.
well-behaved
right.
student.
Yeah.
Like I wasn't like setting desk on fire,
right.
but kind of in my head, like I loved those kids, like
totally.
Todd in the army jacket, like, oh man, that guy's talking about meth. That guy's crazy. Like I love the free thinkers, because I was such a kind of a by the rules, or like I even sought out more rules, like in church,
right.
like there aren't enough rules for me. So in 8th grade, I was like, I want to be a foreign exchange student. And my sophomore year, Johnny, our exchange student, passed out pamphlets. And it's like this little bomb went off in my head of like, oh yeah, I'm supposed to do this.
Oh, right.
And if I could do it my junior year, not my very important senior year, I would do it. And anyway, it worked out. So, and he talked me into it. You couldn't go to France or Spain unless you were fluent.
Right.
I wouldn't go to England or Australia because they spoke English.
Right. Too similar.
Yeah. I was like, well, I'm going to learn another language, which
I mean,
so impressed with my young self.
What do they speak in Norway?
They speak Norwegian. What is do you think it's not even a country? You literally think it's just a joke, a punchline.
It's so funny how Norway is so
Norway
in the news
is just
a
punchline to you.
Trump wants immigrants from Norway, and like every time they talk about like the perfect place, they're like Norway.
Yeah, it's funny. It kind of is. It really.
I remember I knew someone who spoke,
and it's lower key than Sweden.
Spoke Norwegian, and I was like, "Is she from Norwegia?"
Oh boy, you were. All right, I want to talk to you like 2 years from now when you're like, okay, I finally went to Norway.
Yeah,
it is really not like I feel.
Hey, Laura,
we bought a house.
I'm calling you from Norway. I live here now.
It is so good, and they just make sandwiches with the one slice of bread. You don't need two.
Oh, revelatory.
Yeah, everything's.
Could you fold it?
No,
or you just eat it open.
You just open. You just like. You've just got to be calm. You can't just put it in your fist and wad it up like we do.
Right.
So then that's where I drank that. So I drank.
That's where you really found like booze.
That's when I traded in Jesus for a bartender. Because it was, I mean, if you want to know who you are, go to a continent where no one knows you.
Yeah.
Like, I am drinky.
Right.
And a little easy. Little. No, it wasn't sex, but like I would love a make. I'm like, hello,
totally.
boys. And so, yeah, a lot of. Also normal for 17, but still.
When I'm in a continent by myself, I am just plummeting lonely through space. And then I'm like, I think this is the day I'll kill myself.
Interesting. But I would guess as an adult.
Right.
As an adult where you're like, I was in school with people and I lived with a family. Like I kind of had an instant friend set. Right. And because I'm in school. And you could
reinvent yourself right then and there.
And you're just like, nobody knows anything about you that you're this exciting American.
I'm not evangelical, Laura.
Yeah. No one's looking at you.
Easy drinky, Laura.
Yeah, you guys. I'm super fun. Let me be in your band. I was in a band. Right. I was like singing This Is Not a Love Song in some talent show or something. And I was like, I don't even know what's happening. You're going to, literally they call them discotheques. Right. Like you're literally going to discos. And I'm at a disco. These don't even exist anymore in my country. I'm like, yeah.
They're like, wait, this is the same Laura House from Grand Prairie?
Oh my God. When I went back my senior year, people were like, excuse me, what?
What happened to you?
Now I'm like, tequila Laura.
Through a wormhole?
Yeah, I totally went through a worm. I came back. I have to imagine so much cooler.
Right. Everyone was like, thank God.
I have to imagine there were plenty of people that were like, wow. This was a very good move for her. And then other people just horrified.
Yeah, we're just like, what happened?
Yeah. So I went then I'm like, I didn't maintain that level of, I like chilled out a little, I guess. And I went to college and,
Where'd you go to school?
More drinking. UT Austin.
Oh, right. That's right.
So I think another of like, because I was from a town where like, my mom wasn't just a teacher. She was a teacher at my school. Right. And my brother was 2 years older than me. So everybody knew who I was. Right. And so I think I liked Norway or like UT had 50,000 undergrad. And I was just like.
Disappear.
Yeah.
Finally.
I just want to like quit looking at me.
Yeah.
I mean, look at me.
Right.
But.
On my terms.
Stop it. I just want everything and its opposite all the time.
Totally.
I want all your attention, but please don't stare.
UT is like a classic party. I mean, that's a party. I mean, Austin certainly is a great party town.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, I do think every college is. Yeah. I feel like most colleges are like a big drinking school.
Yeah.
Well, of course.
What isn't?
But it also has everything.
Yeah.
Which is every culture, there's a dorm there that's 3,000, has its own zip code. Right. It's so much of everything. And I really loved it. Like I loved Austin, loved UT, and I certainly drank and stuff, but I also got through school. I don't know. I didn't like spin out, I guess. And when I got sober.
What did you study?
I have an English degree.
Right.
Which I regret all the time. Like now that I'm here and actually pursuing, like I write for TV.
Oh yeah.
I'm like, why didn't I just I literally didn't know you could just go study what you wanted to study.
What did you want to study?
Like TV.
You could study TV there.
I mean, it was offered. I just was from a family. Like when I asked my dad if I could do acting, he was like, no.
Yeah.
Like it was just like.
I think I would have been too afraid to even ask my parents to do acting. Like.
Oh, I appreciate that because I feel like I was such a like, Dad, I want to study acting, and he was like, no, and I'm like, all right,
okay, yeah.
Well,
don't blame you. Good, right? Good talk.
That's
Thanks,
fair.
Dad.
That's fair. Yeah. Glad at least we see eye to eye. Yeah,
don't you think
I just
studying
walked away.
English helped your TV career ultimately?
Maybe. I think it would have also helped to have studied screenwriting.
Yeah. Right.
And actually major in, film and television.
Shit then instead of having to learn it on the job.
Yeah. I mean,
so to speak.
Who knows? Like you get what you get. But I do, and I've certainly taken class. I teach it now actually. But
really?
But I also am just like,
where do you teach
this
it?
Would have been helpful. The New York Film Academy. I wanted always to perform.
Yeah.
And I was always afraid to perform.
Right.
And as I got to the end
How did you know you wanted to perform if you were afraid to perform?
I knew you just know every even in junior high when I knew in 8th grade you could take drama or whatever, I knew you could, when your elective could be like I was asking kids about it when I was in stuff like, you can take drama,
right.
But
you never did it.
No, I did those little things, and I performed, at little school events or whatever, but I really wanted to perform. And so I got an English degree, and I told my mom I was going to go to New York to make it.
Yeah.
That was my plan.
And you were going to make it as a what?
To make it. I just thought comedy. I just thought you stand around until you're discovered on SNL.
And were you doing jokes at that point on stage or anything?
No. I just was like, nah, today's the day. And my mom was like, oh, no. And so she said, get a teaching certificate.
Right.
And she said, if you never use it, it's fine. Like to her.
That's smart.
Yeah.
Good
it was
advice.
really, also it's a great way to trick you. Well, I never have to use it. And you're like, well, and since I knew I didn't
no
really.
harm, no foul.
Yeah. And since I didn't really have a plan, I was like, all right. And I liked school. And anyway, so I got a teaching certificate.
Where did you do that? At UT also?
Stayed at UT. But I got, so right out of college, I got a job teaching 7th grade, and that's when I did comedy.
Right.
Before I started student teaching, I had gotten a job at a comedy club selling tickets. I loved to be around it. I loved to meet the comedians, and they would tell me I was funny, and then I got up my nerves, and it was the night before student teaching that I was suddenly, because I was so, my nightmare, and I don't mean this as any kind of offense toward the career of teaching, but was just like, that's what you do for 40 years. Right. Because that's what my mom did, and all of her friends did, and her mom did, and they all just complained about it. So I really that was like my facing a demon. And I went and did stand-up like the night before, because I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be good at this, but I want to be able to say I've done comedy longer than I've been teaching. But like, even though you could say that, no matter what.
Nobody would care, but you wanted to know it.
It really meant a lot to me.
Yeah.
So that's what got me on stage.
Amazing.
And then I taught 7th grade, and I did stand-up at night.
Right.
And impossibly, MTV came to town. This is pre-YouTube, when producers traveled around the country to find comics. And MTV came to town, saw 4 of us in a showcase, took us to dinner, these producers at MTV, and they said, we want to do a TV show with you.
How did you get on that
I
showcase?
had been doing comedy 1 year.
Right.
1 year, off and on, open mics.
That's usually how long it takes.
Yes, that's what everybody says. If you can if you can put it in
the first
off
year,
and on a year,
you'll get
that's what Seinfeld says.
You'll get a show.
He's like, how'd I get my show? I did at least 25 open mics,
right?
And everybody knows that's the road to success. Yeah, it's insane, and impossibly, it didn't happen at that moment, but that show aired.
Wow.
Like the show went away, and then it came back a year and a half later. So I had done stand up for 3 years.
And were you drinking on stage? Like, not on stage, but I mean, would you drink before you went on stage?
It's very interesting. I had real big rules in the beginning. Right. I was like, don't drink before a show.
Right.
And don't drink on stage until I did.
Right.
You know,
so you break
like, because my fear was, well, if you drink and have a good set, then you're going to associate. Sure. Now you have to, but then what if that was,
Yeah, like the magic.
Also, when you're just thinking about it that much, there's probably a problem, as opposed to like, you drink or you don't drink or you whatever. But the managing, I find a big aspect of alcoholism is just being obsessed with thinking about it and what are my rules and never before a show, but what if there's 2 shows? Okay, well maybe before the second, whatever.
Totally.
Yeah,
that's just endless sort of like it's like a mahjong thing going on in your brain all day long.
Well, okay, you can drink, but just 1. But, well, certainly no more than 2. But if you just keep it to max 3.
But if you have 2 and a really something strong, then you'll sleep well, and maybe that's a good idea because then the next day you won't have to drink anything.
2, or if it's like a beer and a shot, so then you're not like bloated, but then you also everything totally was. But I can't. But I want to have a drink after the show, but then I have to drive home, so I really should drink before the show. Then I should have like just every every version of how do I do this? So and that's what really I guess that's sort of where it took off and became a problem.
Right.
And all my things, like I think of it as, I have an alcohol problem, but I think of a threefold, people have their gambling or their whatever. And mine, I think of as guys, pies, and booze.
Right.
Like it's food, it's drink, it's making out with people I don't know.
Totally.
As a way of introduction.
Right.
Instead of like I don't have a business card. Right. I'm like, here's my tonsils. Yeah.
That's honestly the way I like to be.
A lot.
So, that would have worked for me. Like, just like, hey.
It worked worked for a lot of people. I was not easily rejected. It was when you're pretty cute, decent enough, funny. Right. People are like, oh yeah,
let's make out.
I will totally make out with you. Not a problem. So, so that. And the way you asked how I got on the showcase, I just asked. I was selling tickets there, and I was not on the showcase, and I was not going to ask. I was very young, and there was a guy. As if you know me long enough, a lot of my stories start that way. There was a guy, and he said, "You've got to get on that showcase."
Right.
He said, "There's one woman on the showcase."
Right.
And she's 40.
Right.
And I was like 24.
Right.
Something.
How many people were on the showcase ultimately?
20 or something.
Normal showcase.
And and everybody, and I was terrified. But it's funny too, looking back, like, it's a 5-minute set. Yeah. I only had 6 minutes. I mean, it was literally like, what joke do I cut? What do I like, it's almost a dream because now like a showcase is like, oh God! Like it feels like you're. What do I do? It feels like you're just saying 2 words.
Right.
Like
5 minutes. Yeah, 5 minutes. That's just chubba before I start.
I'm barely warming up. Yeah. Right. Whereas anybody else can be sick of you in 15 seconds, but it just doesn't feel like enough. That show's called Austin Stories, and I came out here. And
did you come out here right away? You're just like, that's my ticket, or was it more like they wanted you out here?
It was. They wanted me out here, and I signed with William Morris and a very exciting agent. Amazing. And the head of Fox Casting is a fan, and all the and there was part of I was not ready. Like I remember in my head, I remember even saying to my agent, because she was like, well, what about getting you on Saturday Night Live? And I remember saying, oh, I don't think I'm ready for that yet. Right. And she was this like amazing Black woman, and she said, will you do me a favor? Yeah. And if Lorne Michaels asks you if you want to be on Saturday Night Live, do not say, I'm not ready yet. And I was like, oh, okay. I just thought I should be honest with you. Her name, I can't remember. Yeah. It will come to me. Jenny Delaney is her name. And she was amazing. I remember her. And do you?
I worked at William Morris in 95, 96.
Oh,
so
yeah. That was
about that time.
Close to my time, yeah.
So she would have
Jenny Delaney, yeah. She was really neat. And, her clients were Oliver Platt.
Right,
and
totally.
Olympia Dukakis, and I'm like, and me. But I think it's interesting that, like, the drinking is the least of the problem with alcoholism. Yeah. That is... the weird secret that you find out once you stop drinking is like, oh, the actual problem. Because I just I did not know how to go with this. That like, oh, I'm starring on a TV show and I'm signed with William Morris and I've done comedy for 3 years.
How old were you?
27.
That's a lot 27. To ask anyone to just go with.
I appreciate that, but it some people do, or people knew what they wanted, or were, not. I always seemed kind of together. Like people treated me. I'm not the person that everybody just worries about.
Oh, she's not going to show up.
But I feel kind of that on the inside.
Yeah, totally. I'm like, where's this plane going?
Yeah, but I'm the person that oh, she seems fine because I'm built kind of sturdy and I mean now I wear glasses, so of course I seem
now
smart,
you're totally fine.
No, I'm totally. But it's like I just I'm in it, but I'm freaking out about it. And what, am I I'm afraid I'm the least funny one. Sure. I'm afraid, I feel like that was my first showbiz job. Like I'm starring on a TV show. I'd never read a script. I'd never, this guy had gone to acting school and this other guy had been a reader for and lived in LA. And so the truth is like what I wish I could have told that girl, that was me was like, it doesn't matter, like, read a script. Great. Now you've read a script.
Yeah,
you know, like
totally.
It
doesn't matter.
It really doesn't matter.
No.
And if one of the guys tried to tell me that, he was like, he's like, I went to acting. It doesn't matter. You just, you say the lines and you know how you're supposed to feel about it. And you do that, you know, nobody was like, hey, this should, but I just in my head was like, no. Like I should be better.
It's funny because like my daughter just graduated from 6th grade and I wasn't sure what to give her for a graduation present, and I was like, I'll just give her some money. She's 12.
Yeah.
And then I was like, keys. You know what? I can write her a letter. Like this is a great opportunity to actually try to impart some wisdom. And I would say the most important thing I tried to tell her was like, don't ever feel you have to wait until you're ready, you know, except for sex.
Never do that. You'll never be ready.
You'll never be ready for that. No, but I was like,
Love Dad.
There is this idea that I was brought up with that like you have to study things and master them before you can do them for real. And that's fucking nonsense. Like just do it. Yeah. In the doing, you'll learn.
Yeah. And I think, I just had so much of, you know, terrified to fail, terrified and being, you know, and the truth was like, I was well reviewed. I was well received, you know.
Amazing.
And there were 3 of us who were leads and different people liked each of us, you know, which also didn't land well in my head. You know, if somebody was like, that guy's so funny. Oh, I'm the worst, you know, and it's like, nobody's saying that, you know, like, and just to not like if you could just what if you could go back? What if this is the new version of the Time Machine show? If you could go back and give like your 7-year-old self a sponsor, you know, like not that you would do it because you hadn't hit a bottom yet, but it's just like of all the things that I've been helped with in the past 12 years, from like dealing with a landlord to a boss to what happens when a job ends abruptly to financial fear to going on dates and going through breakups, like a sponsor takes you through these huge life events. And I weep for the 20 years of my adulthood that like I didn't
have a sponsor.
Didn't have like to just say, yeah, you're starring a show, so what? Yeah. You know, it's going to be a show. It's going to end one day.
It's going to fail,
whatever's going to happen is going to happen.
Yeah.
You're with this. Just go to what if you just had fun? You know, whatever. Because everything was like, I'm so afraid of messing everything up.
Yeah,
and so
totally. You're going to mess it all up.
Yeah. So
someone's going to mess it up, you know, and you'll suffer the consequences or it'll get messed up or just shit ends, you know?
Yeah. Every show ends. Yeah. Every show ends. Yeah. And the idea, but what if, anyway. So, so that really, you know, now I'm extreme concern or upset or anxiety or how do you make it? And all I've ever been told is how hard it is and you shouldn't do it. And, you know, it was kind of a secret in a way. Like my parents knew I performed, but now like, you know, I'm living in LA, like they're very much against it, really. Like nothing personal. They're just kind of horrified by the whole. So I'm not even really anyway. So
no, I feel like I'm still in the process of coming out.
It's a very weird. Performer. It's a very weird when like you know they're just like ugh.
Where everyone's just like, why does he feel he has to do that?
Yeah, what are you doing? So I ended up getting, you know, some success out here, but I hit a bottom with I don't know. I hit a bottom with drinking. I hit a point where I was well into my 30s and doing stuff that I was maybe cute at 19.
Right. Sure.
Just there was a night with my friend and it was in Oklahoma City where I'd gone to visit a friend of mine.
Yep.
And it was like there was day drinking, there's smoking. I don't even smoke, but like I'm smoking because we are. And this drink, that other drink, and then we're at a bar, and I was like, there's like an ice luge, you know, like a booze, luge, and I think my mouth is right on it, you know, Red Bull and vodka, whatever, and making out with one guy, and he wanders off, and then there's another guy. Whoa, you know why? I don't want to be bored for any amount of time, you know, and then I'm just, and I think it topped off with like Taco Bell at 3 a.m, you know, just every it was just this. that was the first time I had reached, and I had done other 12-step, like the food program or other things where like in the food program, they're like, don't drink, it's empty calories.
Sure.
And it's so offensive because you're like, well, hey, I don't have a problem. Like, yeah, they're full of so much fun.
They're full of soul.
Yeah. That's my whole social life, but it's empty. So I had really kind of fighting that. I had occurred to me like, oh, I might have that drinking problem. Like there was a program I was doing where like you don't drink, and I slipped like 3 times every time with a drink.
Right. Sure.
Like not a
it
cookie or a chip or whatever. And I was shocked.
That's interesting.
Truly shocked because I was like, would not have thought that was my big problem. So anyway, I ended up, I had this one, it was after this big night of I Did Everything in Oklahoma City. And
it happens a lot.
It is a great, I do appreciate the setting of hitting bottom in Oklahoma City. Totally. Like, why else even go there? Yeah. Like, you got to think that's happening all over town every day in Oklahoma City.
Yeah,
like,
that's where people are just bottoming out.
Yeah, it would be like on the sign, welcome to Oklahoma City. You probably hit bottom.
Here's where you bottom out. Here in Oklahoma City.
I think it's it was a really great setting for it. So I really had that, it was the next day when it hit me, not, oh, maybe I have a problem or, oh, this is out of, but just, it really hit me. Oh, I'm never gonna stop.
Right.
Like I'm never, of all the wanting to stop, all the, hey, I'm not gonna drink today. Hey, I'm gonna start getting healthy. Hey, I'm gonna whatever. I was like, oh, this is what they were talking about.
Right.
I literally, I'll be 60 and doing this if it's possible.
Right. Yeah.
And so I was like, I've got to get to those meetings. And I ended up in AA meetings. Just, I thought I had this other problem, the food thing, but I sat in AA meetings to like see if it would rub off on me.
Right.
And it did.
It did.
Not in the way I thought.
Did you go to a meeting in Oklahoma City or did you wait till you got back to LA?
I was just there a couple days. I was just there for all the excitement. And then
What were you doing in Oklahoma City to begin with?
A really good friend of mine lived there. And so I took a trip. It was after some big job, and I came to
was it like a writing job, or were you?
Yeah,
you kind
I
of
wrote
moved
on
into
the
writing
George
at
Lopez.
that point.
Yeah. I guess career wise, like I came out here and pursued acting, and it didn't really. I came close to some stuff and tested for pilots, but I didn't get a thing. And I ended up writing on some stuff.
Were you doing stand-up at like around town and stuff?
Yeah, a little. Right. I've done stand-up for a long time, but that wasn't.
It wasn't
paying the
rent.
You know, it's like I'm featuring in San Francisco for $500 or whatever, and so, I was like, what? How is any of this a career?
Right. And
then I got very lucky. And I ended up writing on Blue Collar TV, and then I wrote on the George Lopez show.
Right.
And I think it was after that it was probably after the George Lopez show. So I take a trip home, I finally have some money, and I just go to see my parents. My mom had died. Right. So I go to see my family in Dallas, and then like one of my best friends lived in Oklahoma City. So I go to see him. And it was like a soul journey. Went back to Austin. I just like saw some old friends, and
interesting.
Hit bottom.
Yeah.
And and so I got into meetings, and what I heard that changed me,
right?
Because I still didn't think I was an alcoholic. Right. I was like, no. I just enjoy drinking. Yeah, like I'm Texan, and so many words for it.
Sure.
I'm hearty. I'm just fun. And this guy sat down, and he was leading, and he said, all I want is to be inspired and entertained at all times.
Duh.
And I was like, oh, is that what this is? Like, of all the ways to phrase it, that one just hit me. And just people would sit in that chair leading. I went to a place where there's 9 a.m. meetings Monday through Friday. Right. So I just went like school.
Right, yeah.
And I would just cry. Like and after a few weeks I really I felt a physical.
Were you still
deflation.
Drinking at that point, or
not much?
Right.
I did have like another drink or so. Right. I was trying to do the food program where you didn't drink, but I And then I was doing AA as an extracurricular, like in case I want to drink, just so I won't or whatever.
Yeah,
I just had all these plans of how it should work.
Kind of makes sense. Actually.
It kind of did. And I had one more drinking to try to connect with a male, and I'd been married and divorced through this experience as well. So I gave up one day. I felt an actual physical, like a deflation, and I asked someone to sponsor me.
Right. Are they still your sponsor? No, it's been a long time.
No, but only because of geography.
Right. I mean, and when you heard that thing, like, I just want to be inspired and delighted and entertained all day, like, what is the? Because I still want that.
Yeah.
Like, I struggle with that. There's a comedian, Jake Fogelnest, who said on Twitter once, if something amazing doesn't happen to me every single day, I want to kill myself.
Yeah. That's it. Feel. Yeah.
Like, I mean, thankfully, something amazing happens every day. And sometimes it's a small thing.
Yeah. I mean, you have to... You kind of can shift and like, notice something amazing.
Yeah.
Is a flower blooming amazing? Yes, it is.
It is. So and if you're open to it, it can blow your mind.
You have to maybe calm down from what amazing is.
Right.
Where it's not like you being given an elite award.
Right.
But I feel like that's what I heard a lot of. I heard in a way I had not heard at any other kind of meeting, this like depth of loneliness, and it was something I could never tell anyone.
Right.
And I'd been diagnosed with depression at that point twice, I think, and I had a couple different times, and I was like, it was like this dark, like this abyss. I think of it as like loneliness inside that nothing helps. That nothing, like just this void inside, that I think of it as like, if 100 of my best friends threw me a birthday party,
right, and
they're, they all jump out, surprise, we love you, hey, like part of me would still kind of want to be dead. Like, I love that you laugh because like that's horrible. Like, it is. That's not it's not normal, but I appreciate that apparently it's alcoholism.
Right.
That there's just not, that there's just, that at least if you can go, yeah, you have this thing.
Yeah.
So here's what you do to treat it.
Yeah.
You go to meetings, you know other people with this thing, you talk about this thing, you stop drinking, but you do it with a lot of help and community and change some beliefs and change some behaviors.
Action,
and then it's like, and you help other people.
Yeah.
Then it's like, oh, okay. This giant sucking endless void inside is manageable, today or day by day. But it is this thing inside that people who knew me wouldn't necessarily have described me that way. I feel like, but it's just this thing inside that's just this.
I'm just curious, like the scenario you paint of like 100 of your best friends jumping out of a cake. I mean, like, I
love that you added that part. I just said it was a party, but now they're in a cake. They're in a cake. It's being lowered down at Madison Square Garden, and they all jump out of it. There's fireworks, obviously.
Did you? I mean, because like I feel for me personally, like I like in that scenario, usually I forget about the void, like when I'm around all my friends and like feeling like usually I forget that I have this like painful loneliness inside me.
Yeah.
But do you not?
No, I mean, you forget curious. About it sometimes.
Because there are times also when like it feels like this impenetrable thing that I'm encased in, and then whatever, I'll force myself to go for a run or I'll force myself to do something. And I forget it's there, thank blessedly. And it feels mysterious to me that I ever felt that horrible. I'm scared of it, definitely, because when I'm in that, it really feels, it just feels bottomless, but then it goes away. It goes away for me. And like, I'm just curious if there are people, I mean, there must be people that it never goes away for.
Yeah, I guess partly I say it out of I guess to some degree, hyperbole
right,
of like
to
this
well, also to just to help dramatize,
yes,
and not in like a dramatic way, but
moment.
just to help elucidate how it feels.
Yeah, but there's also this, I mean, I think that's, I guess that's the idea is like with treatment, it does go away.
Right.
You know,
goes
like
away.
with treatment, and by treatment, like all the
stuff.
it doesn't just mean like taking pills. It's like you treat with gratitude. You treat it with.
I mean, it really is. It's like it's practice. On some level, it's like you have to work to be happy. You have to work. And it's like happy is the wrong word because it's almost like you just have to work to be stable.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, and productive
and like not suicidal and and you have to work to be grateful. Like all those things of like being of service. It helps me get present. And, it helps, I said, I think in a meeting the other day where like being present is the closest thing I know to God. Like that's like when I'm present, I feel infinite and like the happiness feels infinite and my life feels infinite. And it's amazing that I can experience that without the effect of hallucinogenic mushrooms.
Yeah.
Because I've also experienced it on hallucinogens where I'm like, now is everything and now is infinite and now.
Oh, there is only one thing. Yeah.
And like when I, when I get to that place through whatever meditation and exercise and service and all those other things, like it's pretty mind blowing. But again, it's like, it's not like you get there and then you just, hey, I'm here now. I'm here. Yeah. Everything's amazing. It's like, no, you have to
That's
actually
been the
like
worst,
do
that it's
that
like,
shit over and over again.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, I feel like, no, I don't feel that awful thing all the time, but it's more of like, I'm aware that I have this thing that I just don't, like, I would never say something like that, like, to my brother. Like, if I said that, it was normal. If I said that to my brother, he would be, like, very concerned. Or, like, why? Why do you feel some dark void inside? It's like, I don't know. I just do, well, didn't seem to make sense,
Right.
Or he's actually very nice. He might be like, well, I guess everybody gets a little lonely sometimes.
Right.
Or,
It's not a crisis.
Yeah, he's a really nice guy.
How am I now? Yeah.
Well, I'm coming up on 12 years, and it's been very interesting to me to see, part of this competitive entertainment industry and the challenges of it. Part of me only ever wants to do spiritual work to make money. Which is not why you do it.
Sure.
And also I don't mean to like label myself as insincere, but there is a part that's like, oh, I'll heal this thing in me and then I'll be more productive and then I'll make then I'll get all my things there's just that idea of your list of all the things you want and like, oh, maybe if I have had as far as career, a lot of great jobs, like a lot of like writing, and I've written on a bunch of sitcoms. I wrote on Mom on CBS, and I wrote on whatever. I've written on a bunch of shows, and I also, as I've gone through that, I would think I really want to be happy because I can sort of my own ambition feelings can sort of
sink the boat.
Sink the emotional boat real bad.
Sure.
So I did a lot of when I was writing on Lopez, I learned to meditate in a like a formal way.
Yeah.
And that was really helpful.
Right.
And I ended up when I got sober going back to that a lot. So meditating.
You learned meditation before you got sober.
Yeah, like the year before. Right. And then it was part of even wanting to get sober again to like, because I didn't do it.
Yeah. Because it's hard to meditate when you're drunk, I bet.
Some people can maybe do like, my friend Jerry Stahl he wrote Permanent Midnight, but he was like heroin and like wheatgrass juice or whatever. So I was not that person. I'm like, no, it's drunk makeouts and fried food or boot camp. You know, like
me too.
One or the other. Like I'm all dried out or I'm just like in it. So I I learned to meditate. And so when I got sober, I just was like, oh, I can do this. And it felt safe. You know, here's something I can do that's not hurting me.
Destructive, yeah.
And it was building my self-esteem. And it was also a way to check out in a way. You know, here's 20 minutes where I'm not drinking.
Sure.
Or you know, being mad or
anxious or whatever.
Yeah, crying or whatever. So it was really, I could get into it. And then my meditation teacher at the time would do some workshops or come around for like talks, or there were classes or whatever. It's not like a formal school, but I just kept taking them.
Right.
And I ended up taking a few and going to India.
Oh, wow.
And then I ended up on like a retreat. Ended up, you know, I chose to do these things. But I ended up on a retreat where like the third day of it, I felt that hallucinogenic thing you were talking about. Yeah. Like literally this experience of like getting what it means that there's only one thing.
Sure.
Like not theoretically or intellect, but just like, oh, I am that.
Yeah.
The stuff Deepak Chopra's talking about. Like, because there's only one source. If you keep going, well, where'd that come from? Where'd that come from? We're all going to get to some answer.
Yeah.
Of even if it's chaos theory, you know, that, you know, there's something. So there can only really be one thing. So I am that one thing. So all things are really just one thing. And I am also part of that one thing. Flipped out a little bit. Like, I was like, wow. Oh, shit. Oh boy, what's happening? Called the one person you're supposed to call if that happens, and she calmed me down. And then I got back to it. But I was like, wow, like it was an amazing feeling.
Yeah.
But it was also that like when you're high and you're like, am I too high? Yeah. Like a weird. But the next year, I knew there was a 3-month meditation retreat for people who wanted to become meditation teachers in this practice. And I just couldn't help. I was like, this happened for me at day 3.
Right. Where does this go?
If you did this for 3 months, I was literally like, would you just know everything? You know, are you like Edgar Casey of just like, oh, I just know. Did you know him? He would just like tap into his subconscious and he could answer any question. And because there was, the theory was there was only one thing. So he could just go into, he would know stuff that he couldn't possibly know.
Right.
And so I was like, that didn't happen. But I did go on I did the 3-month thing a year later.
What did happen?
I have been sad again. I mean, what a bummer. But I became a meditation teacher.
Right.
Which I never thought I would do. I'm a comedian. I'm a smart ass. I'm but that's who likes to learn from me.
Yeah.
Is people who are like, oh, I don't want a guy with a long white beard or whatever.
I want someone who's normal. I can relate to.
Yeah. I want somebody who cusses a little and just seems to have.
You didn't find it disheartening that you didn't achieve enlightenment?
Oh, I achieved enlightenment.
Oh, you did.
But I just, I don't know what you want to call enlightenment, but apparently if you talk about it, you don't have it. But, I did, things changed,
Sure.
you know, like my level of what I was upset about shifted, or my, I didn't even know how to describe what happened because it's been 10 years since I did that, and I don't really remember, what was exactly happening before that. But I still do comedy, and I still write for TV, and I was just on a show. Now I'm like wanting to give you my credits.
I want to hear. What
we
show?
were just nominated for an international Emmy.
What show?
I write on a show. So again, I've written stuff you've heard of, but this was something you had not heard of. But a few years ago, my friend made a family show that's on BBC.
Uh-huh.
And this is one of, I guess, what it really ties in for me in being sober is I feel like I had one idea of what would make me happy.
Yeah.
And it was just a blown up magazine idea
Sure.
or something, you know, like, well, you know, standard rich and famous, you know, whatever. And then people like you and then you have enough and you're not going to have any problems. But what I find in sobriety, sometimes people will, I feel like I've seen people celebrate like 10 or 20 years of being sober or something. And they're like, I'm so happy. Like this isn't the life I thought I wanted, but I love it. Like, and so I've written on like Samantha Who or, you know, Chuck Lorre shows.
Big shows.
Some big shows, which is great.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's very great. And then this show is a little show. It's on BBC.
What's it called?
In England. It's called The Secret Life of Boys. And it hasn't sold to a platform where it's streaming or anything. It's literally just on in England or maybe UK. And but the first year, and my friend made it, and the first year it won a BAFTA.
Right.
And I just write freelance,
so you
a script or two a year. But he started last year flying us out for 2 weeks, like after the scripts were written.
Right.
So we're just in London. Like this was when I go, oh, this is exactly what I want, that I wouldn't even have known to ask.
Right.
You know, I want to be flown to London to punch up scripts for a show I love for a couple of weeks. Like that's.
It's funny. I mean, in sobriety, I started doing stand-up, and like stand-up was not on my list.
Really?
Not in a million years.
Oh.
Wasn't part of the plan. Wasn't something I was interested or curious about. And it changed my life completely.
Stand-up did?
Yeah.
What? Because I've become less interested in stand-up.
I can see that.
So what, did you just feel you had more to say now? Or did you just feel...
I guess it validated my life experience in a way that I was able to share that on stage and make people laugh. Surprised me. You know, I think it was part of this whole notion that, like, as I said to my letter to my kid, that, like, don't wait until you're ready. Like, do the creative, like, because it's only in doing it that you'll discover it. And I was like, oh, wow, I'm funny. Like, I was shocked.
Did you not know?
I mean, I knew I could.
You seem funny, and you seem like you've probably always been funny.
Make people laugh at a dinner table.
Oh, got it.
You know, but like to be on stage, and it was just like, and you know, I've been as a producer, I've spent my whole career sort of behind the camera, making things happen, and the idea of getting on the other side of it was really interesting, and then just the people I met was amazing. And
you've been doing that how long?
5 years.
Okay.
5 years. My first year, I was given an MTV show, and I was like, no, forget it.
It is so they're so easy to get. It's so weird.
They were just everyone was getting them.
Just troll open mics, and they're like, who can we bother with a show?
I mean, in truth, I'm not doing a lot of stand up right now. I'm not doing any stand up, like, because I've been busy doing other stuff, and I kind of like I felt like. I'm not sure what the path in that is for me. Like, I'm not sure there is a path. I'm really excited I got to have that experience. And, like, it was electrifying to me. Like,
oh, wow.
Like, it brought me back to, like, the energy of my youth. Like, I was like, this is what it feels like to be 18 years old, you know? I mean, wild. I couldn't believe I was able to have that experience. So,
yeah, it can.
And that's an example of, like, sobriety giving you something crazy that
you never would have thought.
I never would have thought that like I just had too much, I think, low self-esteem to think that I could put myself, like, who am I to fucking think I can make people laugh, up on stage in a spotlight. But I do think that there is that other side of it where it's like, oh, you know, actually the life that's going to make me happier, it's not necessarily smaller, but it's just different. It's less glamorous in some ways, you know.
And it's kind of specific to you. I find, like, I don't know, maybe I get to know myself more,
right? Honestly.
So then the things I want are more specific to that instead of just, I don't know, I was on a TV show, so I guess I just want more TV shows. Like, like the day I arrived. Like, I guess just keep giving me TV shows? Is that supposed to do that?
And then this whole sort of meditation practice you have that could become so vibrant, and that you don't have to just be that.
Yeah.
You don't have to just be a TV person. You can actually be a TV person who has this meditation practice too, you know, right?
Yeah. Teaching meditation was, you know.
Do you still do that?
I do. Yeah. Right. I still teach meditation. Right. I moved about just over a year ago. So I sort of, it changed.
Where'd you move
I was
to?
just on the other side of town,
Oh, right.
but in LA, that's
Yeah, it's like a different city.
nobody's driving
You're
over
like,
the
"Wait,
hill
where
to
am
come
I?"
to your meditation.
Right.
It's too stressful. So I found like the meditation I never saw coming has been amazing. And then this show, like that show in England. So I've gone to London a couple times. I'm going to Ireland in 3 weeks because they're shooting my show.
Right.
And that's what was nominated for an international Emmy, which I never even knew. I didn't know you get like a little medal and stuff when you're nominated. I didn't know anything about it. Had never occurred to me. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I hadn't won.
I think that's the other thing too. I mean, that I've experienced in sobriety is some of the things that I imagined, the good things that I've gone through sober. I mean, I'm so thankful I went through them sober because I was able to be present and appreciate them. You know, my TV show premiering at Sundance and doing all that press for it and stuff. And like, it was different than what I imagined. But in some ways it was better because I wasn't putting all my eggs. I didn't care. Like I was I wasn't like this is gonna make me like. I was like something. Who knows what'll come of this? You know, like. But so because I don't know what's going to become of this, I'm going to enjoy this experience for what it is, not what it might lead to.
Yeah,
you know?
That is great. Yeah, that is an amazing thing about it. Because I've had these. Yeah, when you can just again be present.
Like you
and
were
also,
saying, like every
when
show ends, so everything changes. So like, enjoy this thing.
And when you can think in terms too of be of service,
right?
You know, when you can think in terms of what can I do for someone here instead of like more,
right.
You know, why isn't it raining compliments harder?
Yeah, right.
I had a crazy thing happen. So I told you I'm adopted, and almost exactly a year ago, I had searched for my birth family. I'd searched for my birth mother, and was told a few years ago, when I searched, like, well, we found her, but she hasn't responded,
right.
And so basically we have to call off the search.
Right.
Like, I guess at some point it's harassment, basically.
Yeah.
So I was told in sobriety, like, you can't meet your birth mother, which had like really bummed me out.
Sure.
Like I really wanted
right.
to. And when you get to that point with the adoption agency, you have to have counseling. And like I did a solo show where like I talk about it, among other things, of just like this, who am I? And, you know, what's this thing? And so about a year ago, I got a message on 23andMe that said, hey, just got my results. And it looks like I'm your half brother.
Oh.
It was like 3 days after my 11-year sober birthday.
Wow.
Yeah. So I, in sobriety, have found my birth family. My mother.
Were you able to meet her?
I met them all. So I get this message. This is my half brother,
right.
Jeremy.
Yeah.
And he fills me, you know, and my birth mother's his mom.
Right.
Like he came about a year later.
Right.
And she married his father, and there was another son, and, you know, I have 2 little brothers.
Right.
And so that was in July, and I'm like blown away. And we're communicating, and it was similar to exactly what you were talking about. Of at first, all I wanted to, you know, who's my birth mother? Does she look like me? And is like me? And answer the questions. But as I was getting to know him, you know, at first I started asking questions. You know, I wanted to know about her, but then I stopped myself and was like, I don't know if she has any interest in connecting or me or anything. And I was like, get to know this guy.
Yeah.
And I was even able to say to him, like, to have some perspective on it, and said, you know, we're texting, and I said, you know, I want to ask questions, but also please don't feel like I understand I'm a stranger from the internet.
Yeah.
And you could almost hear the sigh from him texting of just, he was like, thank you, you know, because I never wanted to ask questions that made it seem like, where do you live?
Right. Like I'm a stalker. I'm going to come kill you all.
Like I do want to know, where do you live? What do you do? What do you do for a living? Who are your children? But like, that sounds creepy.
Yeah.
If you don't know a person. So I proceeded like online dating. I was just like, don't do too much. Right. And so, so that was in July. And in August, this is how I met them, which was crazy. So in August, I sometimes do sober stand up.
Right.
So like there was a convention in Florida.
Oh, right.
And he lives in Florida. And I was like, look, this is too soon. But I'm doing a show in Florida. If you want to. He was like, I'm there.
Right.
I'll totally. He drove with his family. His son and his daughter actually went to college in the town that I had a show. And like, so that's how I met my oldest younger half brother.
Right.
And it was amazing.
That's so cool.
Yeah. We met, I met him when we, again, just like online dating, it was like, well, just lunch.
Right.
But I had planned to stay a whole extra day in case we wanted to spend more time together. Right. But like, I didn't make a thing of it. Like,
right.
like because I was sober, I like could proceed.
Right. Like just we'll see what happens.
I was not flipping out.
Yeah.
I was just like, wow. And we're getting to know each other and we look alike. Except he's black because we have different dads.
Oh, wow.
And,
did you know that before you met him?
I knew.
Like if you had a moment like, wait, mean, just like.
No, it can't be you. I'm looking for, yeah, I mean, we had, by the time we met, the Facebook and there's all the things. But when I first communicated with him, so I told you I'm from Texas and I kind of have a racist dad and I do a bit about being raised racist, right? And then like how I went to college and I learned what really happened, you know, like but when you're little, they're just like the South will rise again, and you're like, yeah, the South will rise again, and like you don't have no one told you one detail about what you're saying. You're just like you just don't want to not rise. But everybody's gonna rise, but me, I don't think so. You're just like the South will rise again, and then you get to college and like I said like. I read what I call a real book and was like, oh no. And it was like, how about the South will apologize immediately? Yeah. And then lay low a couple hundred years. Like put that on a bumper sticker. Anyway, so I have this bit about being raised racist. So I connect with Jeremy and we're texting. And then I learn his last name. And so I just deep Google, like for 2 hours, I'm Googling and I feel like I found him.
Right.
And he's black.
Yeah.
And which I do want to make clear, it was very weird to find out that there was one cool thing about me my whole life. And I didn't know till it was so late. But I just mentioned it because it was kind of odd. Like it was unexpected or anyway. Yeah. And so anyway, so I think I know who he is just from piecing it together through things. And then he looks at my website where my bit about being raised racist is on. And so we're like texting like a couple days later and he was like, how racist are you? Because now he knows he's black and I know he's black and then he does. And I'm like, oh, I mean, I'm so embarrassed. That was just, no, I'm not anymore. I'm not doing it. And he's also very funny. So like he was kidding. Like he didn't really think I was racist. And then we're exchanging pictures and he texted me a picture. And at that moment, my phone jammed and no text would go through. And it actually looked like, oh, forget it.
Yeah, like, oh, yeah.
Like it actually looked.
Right, like I was just and
and I was actually in a meeting and I ran out as fast. And I was like, I just called him and we had not spoken before. And I was like, oh my God, the phone jammed. I'm not racist. I'm not trying to, like, I looked so great. And he was just laughing.
That's so funny.
And then he was like, wow, I'm talking to my sister. Like he grew up with a brother and then he heard that he had a sister, like in high school, like that his mom had given a baby away. And then, but they never so they were just
to track you down.
He told me he had tried, but he goes, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
Like until 23andMe, what are you going to hire a detective? And so, so I ended up meeting him that way. He's amazing. And we went for ice cream and like, it was a very sweet moment that I never would have known what it meant to me. I might start crying. But like I bought him ice cream because he's my little brother. Like I wanted like a big sister. I have zero big sister experiences. Yeah. I'm a little sister. Yeah. And like it was just something that meant so much to me to like oh my God, I have this little brother.
That's wild.
And just instantly felt love. And then my 100-year-old grandmother called.
Wow.
She is alive and using the phone. And she was like, I want to meet you. And I'm glad to fly in you and your fiance. And because she's on Facebook.
Right.
And she said maybe in September. And we already had tickets to go to Texas in September because we were going to visit my dad.
Right.
So I asked my dad if it was okay to take a day from his visit and go see them. And he's like he's not against me doing what I need to do, but he was like, it's a scam. Like my dad's like an international expert in how they get you. And so he was just like, and I was like, a scam? Like, what a weird long con.
Right.
I'll make a person and then I'll shake her down from cash.
Put her up for adoption. And 40 years later.
Yeah. Then she'll come.
She'll find me on.
It'll happen. Don't worry about the details. Yeah. He was just worried about me. So, but I met them at my mother, aunt, uncle, grandma. She's 101 now. And, yeah. And then I have a younger brother who lives in Indiana.
Right.
And I've never been to Indiana. I have no business in Indiana. Right. But I had a sober show booked in Indiana. And I had connected with him through email and stuff and just was like, do you want to meet? And he came to the show.
Right.
And we went out for dinner. We went to lunch the next day. And I was like, I met that whole family in like a 2-month period. That's wild. Literally 2 of them were sober shows
on your tour
where they live.
That's wild.
And the other one we magically already had tickets to go there.
And how was it meeting
there's no explaining that, right?
How was it meeting your mom?
It's crazy. For one,
does she look like you?
She does. There are really weird similarities. I mean, not weird because she's my mother. Yeah. Only weird to have lived your whole life and not literally be middle-aged and never met
where this all
anyone with my same nose or eyes or whatever. Right. But we all have the same eyes, nose. And we have the same name. My name is Laura and her name is Lori.
That's wild.
And it was a closed adoption. There was no way my parents didn't know that. Like, I just happened to have basically the same name as her. And yeah, she felt like after a week of texting with my brother, he gave me her number.
Right.
And he said, hey, mom's excited to talk to you. And I so cool. I was working in a library on Melrose and I lost it. Like, I have never cried like I cried. Right. First of all, seeing her number, it's a Dallas number. She lived in Dallas.
Was there the whole
my
time.
brother who I grew up with lives in Dallas. Right. We live in Dallas County. I was just like, she was right there.
That's wild. Like, would you ever wonder if your paths ever crossed over those years? They must have.
You can't wonder anything else.
Yeah.
And it was the same with Jeremy. He was like, oh, I saw comedy all the time in Houston in the 90s. And I was like, I did comedy all the time in Houston in the 90s. Like, you just want to come out like, you were at the first Lollapalooza? Wait, totally. You were you just want to play the film back and like that time, like
be like
a stranger.
Move the camera over here.
Yeah. You just want to that you'd like, we've been like, you've just been, bouncing. The whole time. So as far as like stuff I've gotten in sobriety, it's like, I have had some like dream jobs and then I've had some jobs that didn't go great. Sure. And then, but I have my birth family that I never thought, like me being able to do this and show up for them and to be someone they're proud of. Right. I feel like is a gift of sobriety, like I'm not a gross drunk.
Yeah. Right. Imagine how that all would have gone down if you were drinking.
Or you don't even pursue it. It's just
it's funny because I've talked about this before on this podcast, but I sometimes imagine that like, these things that happen, stand up and my TV show and like the pod, all this stuff, like I would have gotten to it. I would have gotten there. I didn't need to get sober, but like, everything I do is about sober. It's like, It's not that I didn't have something to say. I don't know. It's like maybe I finally understood what I have. I still don't know what I have to say, but like I trick myself into thinking I would have grown up anyway. And then I look at the work I've done in sobriety, and so much of it is exploring this whole thing. So obviously I never would have had any of it without getting sober first.
Yeah.
And like the idea that like, would you have ever have seen your family had you not been doing these sober tours? You know, it's like that weird thing where it's like,
literally
I might
insane.
not have, had I have made it, like, would I have seen him were I not like on that sober tour that was doing that thing in Florida?
And I think for me, my untreated alcoholic head, it's not that I'm drinking 20 hours a day.
Right.
That wasn't my problem.
Yeah.
I was a periodic blackout drinker. So I definitely didn't know how far it would go when I drank.
Right.
But I wasn't a drink all day, all night drunk.
Sure.
So I was functioning in a way, but my personality was very withdrawn.
Sure.
So it was just like, it was hard for me to show up for things.
Sure.
Because I would just, you know, when you're, especially I'm sure it's similar for guys, but I guess I only have my female experience, especially for female alcoholics, the stuff you do drunk is like, you just gut your self-esteem, you know?
Right.
So it's like, I'm a good friend on Wednesday, and then whatever I do on Friday, Saturday, and then on Sunday, I can't look at you. I can't talk. You know, I'm just not going to call you back.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just not going to call you back. It was something like that of like, I think you hate me because I'm doing this weird stuff. You know, like, it was like a secret.
No, I mean, I definitely like that thing of where I would carry all of that weird behavior that had nothing to do with anything else even. But that I would bring all of that shame and guilt and self-loathing into all the other things I was doing in my life. Which
it's like,
made
you
me
know, you were a dirtbag.
Capable of doing, like, I didn't deserve anything because I had, you know, fucking scraped my car along the side of another car the night before. And it's like, so because of that, I don't deserve any career success
or left
artistic
or drove
whatever.
drunk. Or,
whatever.
It's the not looking people in the eye. Yeah. Like, I noticed at some point in sobriety, like somebody was going to my house when I wasn't there or whatever. And I let myself feel this laughter of like, I literally have nothing to hide.
Right, yeah. Help yourself.
Like, I didn't have any. There was nothing like, well, obviously you put this away, or don't do that, or don't read these, or what. It's just, everything was like, my life is. And so another gift of sobriety is that does, I feel like happy endings sound like, you know, you fell in love, or now you're super rich, or now I just won this, or whatever that like, I have a relationship with a guy that it's maybe the one thing that's like literally beyond my wildest dreams of someone really loves me for me and full accept. And he proposed to me like in Hawaii in front of his family. Like, what? Like, that was just not experiences that I was having.
Yeah.
I was making out drunk with strangers, or, you know, I had been married before, but it was like, the intimacy of being proposed to by a man in front of his mother I've never had anything like that.
Sure.
And so like, there's just these crazy things. I mean, if something that amazing doesn't happen to me every day, I do wish I was dead. But what? That's my Josh Fogelnest. Was that the
Jake
one?
Fogelnest,
Jake Fogelnest. The Jakes, the Joshes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't mean to step on that moment. I did, but it was.
How can you not? No,
I mean, how can you not? It's too much. It was such an intimate. But like, I've had 3 relationships in sobriety, not 256.
Right. Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
like I don't take hostages. I haven't cheated on anyone in 12 years.
Right.
You know, like, you're just like, oh, I can show up and just be like a person and like a loving person. And it's profound when you compare to like, oh, I didn't have that before.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's like beyond.
Yeah. Well, Laura,
thanks for having me.
thanks so much for coming in. That was wild. So cool.
Yeah.
Thank you. If you've been enjoying this podcast, you can go to my Patreon page at www.patreon.com/thedrunkalogs and just toss $1 into the basket. Thank you so much. The Drunkalogs cover art is designed and created by John DeManil, and the Drunkalogs theme song is composed and performed by Stephen Stout. I am Nick Morton.